A woman suspected of stalking Kate and Gerry McCann broke down in court today, screaming, "Why are you doing this to me?" when presented with irrefutable proof she is not missing Madeleine McCann.
The Polish woman claiming to be Madeleine McCann said that her DNA was an almost 70% match in messages to the missing girl's mother. Julia Wandelt told Kate McCann, "You are my mother, it's science, no one can deny it." She added, "I'm not a scammer, I am your daughter." They also heard that she sent messages claiming her DNA was 69.23% matched to samples from the crime scene contained within the Portuguese police files into Madeleine's disappearance, which are published online. Well, I wonder if that part is true, if she matched samples to the crime scene, which are apparently published online. Let me ask you, what was your first reaction to her saying, "I am Madeleine McCann"? Jurors were told that Julia Wandelt, 24, from Lublin in Poland, told David and Fiona Payne that if she did a DNA test with the McCanns, members of the group could clear their names as well. It's clear that Julia went to extreme lengths to make sure she got the McCanns' attention.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Mr. and Mrs. Payne, who have been very close friends to the McCanns for around 25 years, gave evidence on Wednesday at Leicester Crown Court. And they said that Ms. Wandelt called them and sent them both messages last year. Mrs. Payne told the court that she was also angry that Ms. Wandelt sent friend requests and messages to their daughter. Well, it seems like she was trying to leave no stone unturned, just trying to get the attention of these people. Can I ask you a question? What was your immediate reaction when you first heard of Julia Wandelt claiming to be Madeleine? I scoffed at the idea simply because I'm of the opinion Madeleine's no longer still alive. It made me angry that a lot of my friends sent me news of Madeleine being found when it first came out, just because I sort of felt that they really don't know much about this case. But what I think doesn't make sense is if you believe Madeleine is still alive, why wouldn't there be a sense of hope and even answered prayers that even if it's a glimmer of hope, even as slim as the possibility was, this could have been her? And wouldn't someone who believed she was alive respond to a claim with enthusiasm and curiosity, interest at the very minimum, rather than ire? For me, it's kind of curious that the way the folks in the story seem to have responded is that they seem to instantly know fake Madeleine was fake. But how could they without making sure, without doing a test? And why not do a test immediately to make sure? I mean, you are dealing with doctors, so that's not something unfamiliar. It's not unfamiliar territory to them. Do you see what I'm getting at? And also, if it's not Madeleine, that's a quick way to make her go away. Now, there's also a creepier dimension to this, which is where fake Madeleine claimed that her parents tried to murder her, apparently with sedatives or something. But before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Bear in mind, I've written a couple of books on this case titled Doubt. There's the Doubt trilogy, and then also the Deep into Darkness and Deeper into Darkness. Both those books are really based on me going boots on the ground and testing a couple of theories in Portugal, in the Algarve, in Luge. So I'll put links to those books in the description. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile and you've never hit the thanks button, please do. Meanwhile, thanks very much to Julie for your contribution. Every little bit helps. Julie, if you're watching, thanks very much. Right, and let's get started.
The court heard the Polish woman Julia Wandelt had allegedly even turned up at the McCanns' home, claiming to be their daughter, as well as sending unwanted text messages and phone calls.
So one of fake Madeleine's claims is actually quite interesting, certainly medically speaking, from a medical perspective. In one message, Ms. Wandelt from Lublin, southwest Poland, suggested that if she did a DNA test with the McCanns, members of the so-called Tapas group could clear their names. In another message, Julia said, "I believe it's possible it was attempted murder because I was given huge doses of medication." Now, we often forget that the McCanns weren't the only doctors in Luge, weren't the only doctors in that group, but in fact they were a group of doctors traveling together. This also makes their decision to check on their kids, that checking system, where it was not a single person getting up to check on everyone's children, which would have made sense, or simply using the resort's listening service, that would have made sense as well, or using their child minding service, but instead using the idiotic, everyone checks on their own child, jack-in-the-box system. That's just absolutely ridiculous. You'd imagine intelligent people wouldn't come up with something that silly, and yet that is the official story in terms of this case. Now, in a series of messages after several phone calls, Ms. Wandelt wrote, "I could hear the sadness in your voice, David." That's a reference to Dr. David Payne. "You are literally the only person connected to Kate and Jerry who answered my call and spoke with me a little bit. You are my only hope, David. Help me, please." Police have told the court that DNA samples taken upon Ms. Wandelt's arrest in February conclusively proved that she was not Madeleine. Now, I would have liked to have known how and where the DNA sample of Madeleine was used. Was it the same sample used in the investigation? Because do you remember the results of those comparisons to body fluids found in the vehicle were ultimately inconclusive? It wasn't that they weren't a match, they just wasn't a sufficient match. But the British media reporting on this aspect are not very clear on this point, either because it's not been made clear to begin with, or because that's the British media, simply don't realize the importance of making it clear. Interestingly as well, no new photos of the Tapas 2, that's David and Fiona, have been provided either, just archival footage. Now, one thing that I seem to remember from this case is that Fiona Payne made the comparison or made the comment that the twins were sleeping very soundly. As I understand it, Dr. Fiona Payne made this statement. She said, Kate kept going into the twins. She kept putting her hands on the twins to check that they were breathing. She was very much concerned in checking that they were okay. But they were okay. I mean, they were fine. They were asleep, but at the time it did seem weird. I remember thinking, when the police came, they turned the lights on, there was loads of noise, obviously from the moment Kate discovered that Madeleine was gone, the screaming and the shouting, and there was a lot of noise, and they didn't, so much as blink. And why I think that's quite interesting is these are the observations of a doctor who's not just a doctor, but she's an anaesthetist. And Kate McCann at a particular point was also an anaesthetist. And so I guess it's within this perspective that Julia's statement is actually kind of interesting. Interestingly as well, no new photos of the Tapas 2 have been provided either, just archival footage. But I'm sure we can look forward to some brand new footage of the so-called prime suspect, Christian Bruckner, any day now. Not that I have really any sympathy for him, but he has to be sighing huge sighs of relief that this trial is happening at around the same time he was released, because it's a massive diversion of attention for him. So for the moment, the attention has shifted away from him, right? When the trial is over, one wonders who or what will the focus be on. Still on Bruckner, or will we return to kind of random scenarios and suspects like we're dealing with in the Ramsey case? Well, I'm not going to take it further than that. I have put up a really interesting video on the Hulu series, basically a review of the first episode dealing with the Murder case. It's a really interesting case, but the dramatization, I think, has done really an interesting job. And there's some really interesting insights that have come about from that. So I do highly recommend you go and have a look at that. And incidentally, Unspeakable, The Murder of John Benet Ramsey, which is a new true crime drama series, that was slated to be dropping at the end of the American summer, which basically is the end of September, right? And we're now midway into October. So it feels like at any minute now, we're going to hear news of this new drama series starring Melissa McCarthy as Patsy Ramsey and Clive Owen as John Ramsey. It was supposed to drop, as I said, at the end of the summer in the USA, which is basically now. So one wonders when that news is going to come through. Anyway, I'll be keeping tabs on that and letting you know as soon as I do. Anyway, take care. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.